reduces your MP cost by 12%. This is huge. All those times you're running out of mana because of T skill, for example, it's because you probably don't have something like Illicit Spell. Now, if you take Keen Sense, which is another option, this one gives you up to 8% crit at level 2 with a 10% evolution type damage percentage. So this gives you a healthy mix of crit and also damage, but it does sacrifice some of that damage, right? Because this one will give you 20% at level 2, while this one will give you 10%. So it's double that. So now that you know these tier 2, so there's a split trade-off between damage and crit rate. Now we talk about Unlimited Magic versus Zealous Smite. So Unlimited Magic here will give you an evolution type damage percent, but also, very important, it will reduce any MP consuming skill cooldown by 14%. So that's already a very significant amount, right? With the MP cost of -16. So what is that? 28% reduction in mana with a 14% cooldown reduction. That's huge. And then on this side, we have Zealous Smite, which gives you a massive amount of crit rate. And on top of that, just a little bit of evolution type damage. So here is also a trade-off. So it's very similar acting like Illicit Spell and Keen Sense, where Unlimited Magic will give you more MP reduction as well as CDR, but then you won't get like an insane amount of evolution type damage, right? It kind of decreases it, but it's still a lot at 16%. Meanwhile, for Zealous Smite, it's not going to give you a lot of damage, but in return, it gives you a bunch of crit rate. So at level 2, this will give you 24% crit rate for just having level 2 Zealous Smite, which is insane. So that's the trade-off for here. This is the trade-off for here. So now, we got to talk about the combinations of each one. So I pull up this notes here, and it shows you. So the first one I tested was Illicit Spell 2 with Zealous Smite 2. So this will give you, from the tier 2 row, mana reduction with damage, but also crit rate from the Zealous Smite as well. So this will give you probably the highest crit rate you can possibly get. And I'll explain why, because you might be saying, well, why not Keen Sense too? Well, it says it right here, so we'll get to that point. But yes, this combination here did 63.9 mil with an 88% crit rate with no crit synergy, by the way. So with the crit synergy, you'll be pretty much overcapping here. So as you can see, you can probably guess by now that this is something you go blunt spike with, right? Because you'll be overcapping on crit rate. But one of the bad parts is, since you're not using Unlimited Magic, it will be slower to get the burst off. Second test I did was Keen Sense 2. So on the tier 2 line, I'm using additional 8% crit rate while also having the Zealous Smite, which is another 24% crit rate. So this is a build for insane crit rate. However, I couldn't do it even with max MP increase. I ran out of mana because you don't have either Illicit Spell for that 12% mana cost reduction or Unlimited Magic, which reduces it by another 16%. So third, so obviously, I mean, for the second one, don't use that. So next combination, Keen Sense 2, so crit rate on the tier 2, but Unlimited Magic 2. So this one will reduce your crit rate because now you don't have Zealous Smite, but it's not that bad at 81.75% crit rate with a 65.7 mil, so it already wins out on the first run, and it gets off all of those cycles 5 seconds quicker. Now you might be going, oh, 5 seconds, big deal. 5 seconds is a lot. So the fact that you're able to get your cycle off 5 seconds quicker is a lot more difference for having Unlimited Magic 2. Okay, and without sacrificing a lot of crit. Anyways, we keep going. So Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 1 and Zealous Smite 1. So now we split the tier 3 nodes 1 and 1. So we get a healthy mix of crit rate, we get a healthy mix of MP and CDR, and then we also get another MP and more damage rather than crit. So as expected, this will have a lot less crit than, let's say, Illicit Spell and Zealous Smite, but 78%, not the worst, I will say, especially when you see the damage number. 69.2 mil with a burst cycle of 2 minutes. I was able to get my burst off in 2 minutes. So just for a 1 second off, you get a lot more damage compared to a 69.2, right? Or 65.7 to 69.2. So overall, this is winning so far, right? But we had to try, of course, what they recommended in the lostark Nexus website. Keen Sense 2 with Unlimited Magic 1 and Zealous Smite 1. The idea here is you're going to get more crit rate, right? Because now you have Keen Sense 2, but you also still keep the MP CDR while also having a massive crit rate to back it up, right? It's a healthy mix of everything. However, when we tested it, 64.5 mil with an 86% crit rate, so very, very decent crit rate, but very low damage with a cycle run of 2 minutes and 1 second. So this is like okay, right? So I see why lostark Nexus would recommend something like this because it is very safe. However, it's not going to give you the ceiling damage that you need, similar to this build right here, right? But this build, I will say, is very risky. So this is a very, very safe build. Now, next, this is possibly the most riskiest build that I can come up with, right? Combination-wise. So it's Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 2. So now you notice we have 0 crit rate from the tier 2 nodes and 0 crit rate from the tier 3 nodes. So ignoring 70.4, which is it's the highest one, right? Extremely low crit rate, 67.86%. But because we have Unlimited Magic 2 and Illicit Spell 2, we have no worries with mana. And on top of that, we're going to be doing theoretically the maximum amount of damage, assuming you crit enough on your pink skills. Now, in this case, I only crit 67.86% of the time, but this was by far the fastest burst. So I don't have the exact numbers here, but it shaved off a lot of times. I would say like 10 to 15 seconds. So this is by far the best build, especially if you have a crit synergy. If you have crit synergy, this is without a doubt the best build in my opinion, right? So if we had to rank it, spoiler alert, like I just said, this Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 2 was the best. It did the highest damage when you crit, and so if you have a crit synergy buff, this will definitely do number 1, in my opinion. Now, again, I just want to say, this is just my test. So I've done this for a few hours, but I could be wrong, and this is just based off of my own specs. So don't take this as law. Try it for your own self, but I just wanted to let you guys know on my results here. So number 2 would be Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 1 and a spread of Zealous Smite 1. The reason being is you significantly increase your crit rate with Zealous Smite 1, but you still don't sacrifice any of these stronger nodes, right? You give up 12% for this, but you don't give up much of the damage, right? It's very, very close. Now, I will say, if you have a crit synergy buff, you should probably use number 1, right? But if you feel like it's a little iffy, then number 2 is probably your go-to option. If you don't have a crit buff, then I would still say go to number 2, right? But anyways, with that being said, let's just talk about the rest because, I mean, these 2 are probably my recommendations, but we probably should talk about the rest ones. Number 3 on the list was Keen Sense 2 with Unlimited Magic 2. So this got an 81.75% with a 1 minute 59 cycle. This is due to Unlimited Magic 2. And then it had a 65.7 mil, so a lot lower than these numbers. Same thing goes here. Keen Sense 2. This is the one that lostark recommended, right? lostark Nexus. This one did 64.5 mil with an 86%. 2 minute 1 second. I would rather go for this one, right? Obviously. And then 5th is Illicit Spell 2 with Zealous Smite 2. So we give up on Unlimited Magic completely. So as expected, this will be our highest crit rate. However, it is a lot slower because you don't have that CDR anymore. So finally, Keen Sense 2 with Zealous Smite 2. This is the full crit build. Couldn't even do it. Even with max MP increase, run out of mana. We already talked about this before, but it is obvious this is dead last because you can't even do it. You can't even play the character, even with max MP increase. But anyways, TLDR, I would go for either Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 2 or Illicit Spell 2 with Unlimited Magic 1 and Zealous Smite 1. It really depends on what you're feeling that day and also luck, right? You need to crit, and also if you have a crit synergy, it really depends on all that stuff. Also elixirs too. I used Master Set for all of this, so keep that in mind. Anyways, that is all. I just wanted to lay out some of the stuff for the Hyper Awakening on the evolution side for Full Moon Souleater. Let me know if you guys like this kind of video and you want me to do more tests for different builds like Knight's Edge, Arcana, Shadowhunter, Deathblade. As I continue to get A gear pieces, I can test these for you guys so you don't have to. Anyways, that is all. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.